Good evening and welcome to another episode of Back to the Past. I'm Blair. I'm going to be doing something that is, maybe a little bit unusual in that almost everything that I do, I pretty much know is going to work, or at least have a good idea is going to work. What I'm going to do here, I'm not sure will or not, so I'm not going to be disappointed if it doesn't. I'll be thrilled if it does. It's fall now and time to be thinking about winter. So I got this setting in the position that I want it to be in, except that I've got to do something with the floor to make the floor fireproof and fire resistant. So I have plumbed up from the chimney of the stove up to the ceiling where I already ran the pipe through the roof. So that's taken care of. This is where it's going to sit. It's sitting at a 45-degree angle to the room. Now, I've got a couple of choices. One is to put in concrete block here. If I can go 4 inches thick and meet the code requirement for that. I need the 4-inch fireproof separation between the flooring for this and the floor below. And then I need 18 inches all around it. In the back, I actually need, I think the old fire code said 3 feet with a reduction of 50% if you protect the wall. The newer one says 4 feet unless you protect the wall, and you can go drop that by 2/3. So I'm about 2 feet from the wall in both directions here. So once I get the walls protected, I should be in pretty good shape. But what to do with the floor? Stay tuned and you'll find out. Well, since the floor joists in this floor that make up the structural part of the floor are designed for a maximum span of 20 feet, and my span is 19 foot 4 inches, I'm getting pretty doggone close to that limit. So I want to minimize the weight here, and I really don't want to put down concrete block or stone that's going to load up this corner. Even though the load is pretty much concentrated to the corner where it's not going to make any difference, I really don't want to do it. I want something much lighter. What I plan to do is the use of metal studs. Now, metal studs really are made for non-structural walls. They're really not meant to take a load on their edge, especially, which is where I plan to use them. So what I'll do is, you can see where I've got the blue tape laid out. That will be the outside edge of the pad that this stove will end up sitting on. What I plan on doing is essentially a 2x4 metal stud all the way around the perimeter, and then every 4 feet. And then the reason that I have these legs marked is I want to make sure that there's one directly under each of the legs. And then in addition to that, so these will run in that direction, the main studs will run in that direction, and then I'm going to have blocking in between them. I don't really know, probably 16, 18 inches. I'll probably run 1, 2, 3 rows of blocking in between them to keep them from tipping over and help them from getting smashed. And then over the top of that, I will put metal roofing. I actually have a repurposed metal roof that came off of some of the old chicken houses around here that I'll lay over the top of that, and that will give it a little bit of structural integrity in that it will at least distribute the load across more than just 1 or 2 of the metal studs. I'm thinking that'll probably be enough to take care of it. The stove really isn't all that heavy. It's probably 200 pounds, something like that. All loaded up, it's going to be around 300. So it's really not all that heavy, not a whole lot heavier than me and another person like me standing here would be. And I really think that that's probably going to work. If it doesn't, I will know pretty doggone quickly, even before I set the stove on it, I'm sure. Then on top of that corrugated metal, I will put down a cement board, and then on top of that, a ceramic tile. And I'll probably use the same tile that I used in bathroom that has kind of a wood look to it, which I'm hoping doesn't contrast too badly with the floor here. I'll have fake wood everywhere in here, and then I'll probably trim it around the base with hickory, and then this wall then will be done in this wall and this wall here for 5 feet in each direction will be also finished in that repurposed metal roofing that I've got. And it's got some rust to it, so it's going to look like it probably belongs in an older setting, which is really what I'm shooting for, and I hope that it does. Again, whether it works or not, I don't know. I won't be hugely disappointed if it doesn't. If it does, I'll be absolutely thrilled, because then I'll really be minimizing the weight that I put into this corner here. So stick around and we'll keep on working on it. I probably won't do any more this evening, or maybe I will, but I'll get back to it tomorrow if not. See you then. I've moved the stove out of the way, and I've secured this outside edge just with a couple of screws to temporarily hold it in place. What my plan is to get this framework built. I'll put one stud across at that leg, another stud across to take care of that pair of legs, and another one to take care of that leg, and then I'll probably do some cross bracing here at each place. And I'll probably have to put in one more stud back here just because of spacing. But I stood on the corner of this here, and actually I think as long as I have enough cross bracing in it, it's looking pretty favorable right now. Once I get the metal framework built up, what I'll do is I'll pull those couple of screws that are into the wall, and I'll pick this up, move it out of the way, clean the floor. I have some fiberglass cloth that I plan to put on the floor to protect the floor. I'll set the framework back in place. I'll insulate between these metal studs, and then I'll put the sheet of metal roofing over the top. Now, today I have some business to take care of in Fayetteville, so this is going to be kind of on and off video, which probably works okay anyway. I think this is going to be a difficult one to film in that I've got the sun that's just come up, and so there's going to be sunny spots and dark spots, and then later on in the day it comes through these clerestory windows and again creates some light and shadows that are going to make it kind of hard for the camera to pick up what to do, and I don't know that in editing I can balance that very well without really messing up the contrast. So I'm going to try to film this only when I don't have direct sunshine in here and I can turn on the overhead lights. So that's what I've got going on now. I'll be back. I think you can probably see what I'm doing here so far. Uh-oh, I've got a dog coming over to help me. Hi, Gabby. Anyway, I've got four more pieces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then one right under Gabby. There are 5 more pieces to put in, and I'm actually out of metal, so I'm going to have to pick up another metal stud while I'm in town too. But actually, when I'm standing on those intersections of the cross pieces with the long studs, it's actually pretty secure. I can stand on it, so I'm feeling fairly confident on how this is going to go. And then once I get the metal roofing on, the insulation down, the metal roofing on, and the backer board on, then the tile that I'm going to use is going to be the same as in the bathroom, and it's 6-inch by 2-foot pieces, so they'll be spanning a pretty long distance here. I'm just pretty doggone sure at this point that this is going to work. Not absolutely, though. I'll see you this afternoon when I get back. All right, I think you can see what I've done here. I've gone ahead and made up kind of a maze of everything, and everywhere there's an intersection, it's really good and solid. Places like this in between, I can flex up and down on it. The structure of the metal stud is actually pretty good, even sideways. And when I get to putting the metal roofing over the top of this, that should help to sturdy everything up even more. The largest area that I have that's unsupported would be this in the middle, but where the 4 legs are is really well supported. I've got pretty good support going up against the wall, pretty decent support here in front. I don't know just how much I'll be walking on this once I once I get it all put together and once it's in use. Maybe a little bit, you know, I'll probably put an ash can on one side and fireplace tools on the other. I think the firewood I'll actually store off to the side of this pad. But I'm thinking right now at this point it's probably going to work. My next step now will be to pull the screws from the wall, flip this over, and then attach everything on the back side here. And since that part is on the floor, what I'm going to do is use rivets on that part. At that point, that's probably all I'll do today. But then at that point, what I'll have left to do will be to come in and put in the fiberglass cloth on the floor to get that covered and protected so it doesn't scratch up and that sort of thing. Now I know you say, who the heck cares what it looks like underneath, but I don't know what the rest of my life will bring me, what choices that I'll have, or if my kids end up moving into it and I move into a nursing home when I'm an old man or something. Maybe they don't want a fireplace and they can easily pull this thing up and still have a good wooden floor or fake wood floor underneath. And now I have a phone call that I need to ignore. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. I'm going to continue with this, and I'll be back tomorrow probably to flip it over and do some of the other work. I think what I'll probably do is I'll get the other side fastened together. I'll put the cloth down. I'll set this and attach it in place. And the only place that this will really be attached will be along that back wall, or the two back walls there, I guess. And the front, I guess, would be able to float, but it's going to have a stove on it, so I'm not looking for it to move an awful lot. I think that's all I have to say for now. I'll be back tomorrow. Thanks, Gab. Yeah, thanks for your help. Before I put in this last sheet, I wanted to catch you up on what I've done. I finished up the network of the metal studs by putting rivets on the back side of everything, and that in itself actually really firmed things up a lot. Then I went ahead and cut some of this metal roofing, and it's a fairly narrow gauge metal roofing, so what I did is I've overlapped everything by about a foot. So essentially the metal roofing now is doubled except for that 6 inches there and about a foot behind me. And it's actually kind of surprised me in a good way in that this is a lot firmer than I really expected it to be. And the really great thing about it is this entire contraption here weighs about the same as one concrete block would, and I would have a lot of concrete blocks in here in order to bring it up to 4 inches. I think so far as code, I'm not sure that this would meet code, but the one thing I am quite certain of is that the insulating value of this is well better than what concrete block would be, a whole lot better than that. I had some R19 bats left over that have just been collecting dust downstairs in the barn, and I went ahead and used them. So everything is insulated with R19, although since it's not fluffed up to that 5.5 inch thickness that it's supposed to, probably not getting that much, but probably getting at least an R15 out of it. So now I'll go ahead and I'll put on this last sheet, and once I get everything screwed down, then I'll go ahead and start with the tile backer board, and that should make things even better yet. I guess so far as movement, I think the worst that I can see happening now is some cracking in the mortar joints between the tile. And since I've got everything extremely fireproof below it, it's not something that I will lose a lot of sleep over. So I'll catch up with you again in a little while when I've done a little more. Okay, the tile backer board now is down. I'm ready to start laying out the tile. Now, I was planning on using the same thing that I used in the bathroom. I actually thought that I had an extra box or two of that left over, but I didn't. So I went to Home Depot and they're out of stock on that material. So I got something different, kind of a stone look ceramic tile. So what I'm going to do is I'll have to do all the corner mitering and stuff, of course, but I think what I plan to do is to run the outside edge with the length of the tile parallel to the outside edge all the way around, and then I'll run the rest of them diagonally in this direction here. So I think that'll look okay. That way it's not going against the grain of the wood flooring in any direction. Not that that probably matters, but I think I'll like the way that it looks that way. Here we go. Okay, I got the tile all set last evening and it's ready for grout. Now you can see here that I didn't do this with the pattern that I told you I was going to. I had originally intended to run something diagonally, have a diagonal pattern in this area in the back. When I cut a piece and kind of laid out several of them, it looked just way too contemporary for my taste. I didn't like it at all, so I decided to go with something more conventional. I think it ended up looking okay. I'm not crazy about the pattern of this tile, but colors sort of coordinate with the floor. We'll have a stove sitting on it. I think it's going to be pretty attractive in the end. So grout is next. I'll work on that. I'll use the same grout that I did in the bathroom on the tile in there, which is kind of a beige colored grout. And then the next step after that is going to be putting the metal protection on the wall. And I'm going to use the same corrugated iron, corrugated roofing that I did below this, except I'll turn it around from what this is. That was used stuff. So it's pretty rusty on one side, and I'll have the rusty side facing out, and we'll use that to protect the wall. I'm a little bit confused as to what I'm going to use up for a spacer behind it. Now, in order to qualify as protection for the wall and be able to reduce that distance to something proper, less than 4 feet, that's required. And the spacer behind it also has to be a fireproof spacer. I was thinking about, like drywallers use, a 7/8 hat channel. I'm having a hard time finding that in Fayetteville, so I'm going to have to come up with something else. But what I'll end up doing is setting the bottom of that about 1 inch off the floor, or 1 inch above this. Excuse me. So I will have to paint the wall probably a kind of a brown, that bottom couple inches, so I'll do that once the grouting is done. I'm going to have to at least get the trim up around this one window and then figure out just exactly how I'm gonna run that and tie it into the window, because what I intend to do is to run that metal roofing up to the level of the top of the windows, and then that meets all the requirements that I need for spacing and such. I could go all the way to the ceiling, and I guess I may look at how that appears to me once I get a piece of metal up there. Not quite sure how I'm going to finish that top yet, the top edges of all of this, but we'll figure that out when we get there. Time for some grout. This is the final cleaning. I've actually cleaned it after I grouted. I cleaned it 4 times prior to this. This one I put just a little bit of vinegar into the water and just have the acid clean up whatever little bit of film that there is left on the floor. The next step then will be to paint 2 or 3 inches high on these walls with probably a kind of a rusty color paint, just somewhat to match the metal that there's going to be there. I think being too dark is better than too light. Just from past experience, that seems to work out a little bit better, so I think that's what I'll do. Now, since I don't really know what I'm going to do with framing, the metal framing on these 2 walls before I put up the metal siding, I'm going to go ahead and end the episode here. But the one thing that I would appreciate, if you've got any suggestions as to how to frame that, how to tie it into the wooden trim on the windows and such, I'd love to hear it. It may be a week before I get back for the next episode, so I got time to read a little bit of your opinion. I'll see you again soon. Thanks for being here. Goodbye.